We are going to be introducing the ICE method, which is what you will be using when you write your body paragraphs. ICE stands for interpretation, citation, and explanation. You all should already be familiar with each of these individually. Now we are going to learn how to put them all together. Interpretation just means putting a quote into your own words. Citation is how you're sourcing the document, so that's what will be in parentheses at the end of your interpretation of the source that you got the information from. And the explanation is your this shows part, relating it back to how it supports your claim.
Okay, so the first thing that we want to look at is interpretation. So your interpretation is just taking the evidence, taking the quote that you found, and putting it into your own words. Okay, so down here we have an example of a quote from the How Pearl Harbor Shaped the Modern World by Jonah E. Bromwich, New York Times, 2016. And he states, in June 1941, the summer before the Pearl Harbor attack, an unsigned analysis in the Times explained why many Americans were tending toward pacifism in the face of Hitler's rise. It said one reason was the abiding memory of World War I, during which many Americans died. So now I have this quote that hopefully, it supports my argument. So I didn't just pick a random quote. It supports my claim, and my claim is going to be an argument. I'm arguing something, right? And this evidence is going to be what I'm going to use to show or prove my argument, okay? But I do not want to use their words. A historian should always interpret what another historian says. So I made an interpretation, and then I added my in-text citation. So when you're doing your interpretation, you want to first give credit to the author. So that says, according to Jonah E. Bromwich, okay, of the New York Times. That's my according to, okay? Always put according to or some other words that gives the author credit. So according to Jonah E. Bromwich of the New York Times, before Pearl Harbor, many Americans were worried about getting involved in European affairs due to their memories of the many American deaths in World War I. And then parentheses, I got this, now I'm going to do my in-text citation, Bromwich, 2016, because there's no page number, I'm going to go to the date. The period actually goes after the citation.
So here's how you do citation with the page number. It'll be the author's last name, comma, and the page number. With the citation without page, you're going to use the author's last name, comma, and the year that that document was written or published if it was a book. Again, note the period always goes after the citation. It always goes after the parentheses.
If there is no author, you would then go to the publisher. So say you went to the New York Times, there's no author, it says New York Times staff, or it just says nothing, then it's the New York Times, comma, and then the date, okay? So you go author, you go publisher, and if there's no author and publisher, you go title. But at that point, you really want to start talking to yourself and considering that maybe if this doesn't have an author or publisher, that this might not be a credible source.
Correct.
All right, so we saw this already, right? This is something that you've seen. This is explanation. So explanation goes after your in-text citation. For this class, okay, we are just going to use the words, this proves that, and this shows that. Or the author proves, or the author shows, or the title proves, or the title shows. You're gonna use those 2 words, okay? And that's it for now. So explanation is going to take your interpretation and explain why it proves or shows your argument. Okay? You have an argument in your claim. You're making an argument. So now you've given evidence. Now you have to explain why that evidence proves your argument. Okay? It does not, in no way does it rehash your interpretation. If you say something like, this says, that's interpretation. Leave that for the interpretation. Anything that starts with this says, this states, that's interpretation. This you want to prove, okay? You want to say you're a lawyer and you're trying to prove a crime, okay? You are going to give evidence of the crime. Here's the smoking gun. And then you're going to explain why the smoking gun proves the crime and who did it, okay? So sometimes I really like to think this as like a lawyer trying to solve a crime or trying to put this in front of a jury, okay? So if you can see here, like I've told you before, you have the claim, the Great Depression in the United States was caused by speculation on the stock market, over manufacturing, and bank runs. We've got 3 reasons. I'm going to take one of those reasons, okay? I'm going to interpret a quote that I found. Franklin Roosevelt states in his inaugural address in 1933 that banks were one of the problems of the Great Depression. He calls them evil to emphasize their role in the failure of the American economy. In order to fix the issues with the banks, Roosevelt is going to put strict supervision on them and end speculation. In-text citation, okay, Roosevelt, 1933. Now I'm going to take that's my evidence. I'm now going to explain why it proves that the Great Depression in the United States was caused by bank runs. This proves that one of the causes of the Great Depression was banks and the runs on them. Banks did not have any safeguards in place to help them overcome runs, which happened after the stock market crash in 1929. The fact that Roosevelt brought up the banks and called them an evil and old order shows that the banks were one of the factors that caused the Great Depression and one of the issues that Roosevelt was going to personally attack during his presidency. I'm explaining the interpretation. I'm not telling anyone what it states. I'm telling everyone what it states proves this. This is going to be your outline. So this is going to be what your body paragraph is going to look like. When you do a body paragraph, you need at least 2 sources for each body paragraph because of corroboration. Remember in the beginning of the year we were talking about corroboration? You can't just base everything on one source, okay? So at least 2 sources. It is up to you if you want to use source 3 to source 1 million. Okay? That is up to you and how long you want your actual paper to be. Please don't use a million sources. So you're going to have an introductory sentence, and then for source 1, you're going to have an interpretation of your source. It's going to be 1 to 2 sentences. Then your in-text citation, and then an explanation on how the source answers the question, 2 to 4 sentences. Then sentence 4 through 5, okay, is going to be interpretation of the second source. Then your citation, and then your explanation on how the source answers the question. And you rotate through these ICE cycles with as many sources as you have, okay, as many pieces of evidence as you have to prove your point and to prove your argument.
And here you can see all of this is put together. And the first thing we would like to note is you all should be color coding your writing to start off. One, it helps you stay organized so that you know you're not missing a certain piece of the interpretation, citation, or explanation. It also is very helpful for your teachers, for us to know that you hit all three of these and you did it twice. There's no guessing. Your language that you use in the writing should already show us that you're using or that you've gone through the interpretation, citation, explanation, because your interpretation should always open with according to. So you have according to reporter Timothy Ludd. Jump down to the next screen. According to a petition in 1919. Beautiful. Citation, always right after your interpretation. Your interpretation could be multiple sentences. You will always introduce it as according to the source, author, or the title of the article, or the title of the book, whatever it is. You can make the interpretation a few sentences. It will all be highlighted in green. We will know you are done interpreting when we see that pink. And it's in parentheses. That's your citation. We will know you go into explanation when we see this shows. This shows that the continuation of women being employed in mostly male-dominated jobs caused turmoil within society. Some men felt this change was interfering with their lifestyle and were willing to resort to drastic measures in order to restore previous traditions. Here we have a sentence that is not highlighted. This is a transition sentence. It is leading into the next piece of evidence that is going to be introduced, right? So in addition, women steel workers also faced great oppression. So now I'm assuming this is now going to talk about women steel workers facing opposition. According to a petition in 1919, over 400 French male steel workers demanded that women currently employed at their mill be forced to give up their positions due to the fact that they were careless and thus dangerous to work with. Citation, Lowell Women's Mill Petition, 1919. Explanation, here's more wording that you can use. You're going to use either this shows or this proves that. So this example gives us this proves that. These men were angry with the use of women workers and clearly were not afraid to let their employer know their feelings. They were so disturbed with women working in their mill that they were even willing to claim that women were a threat to the health and safety of all the mill workers and were incompetent employees. So with that explanation, obviously you can see in both of these explanations, actually, we're not repeating what the interpretation is saying. We are pushing it beyond the interpretation and proving our claim, an educated opinion using the interpretation to prove your claim.
Okay. If you have any questions, please email us. Otherwise, you are ready to go for a body paragraph.